Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Perspective. And I've said it over and over again, and I say it yet again. I'm so blessed to be in this position because it allows me to interact with the most amazing of people. This time around, a young lady who has achieved so much in her life that it makes me and hopefully you feel that nothing is impossible. She has written 2 books. She's busy writing her 3rd book. She's also climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and she has been climbed up to Mount Everest, the base camp. She is a certified mind coach and also an international speaker and so much more. Let's introduce this amazing young woman to you and let's get talking and get perspective on the show this morning. Assalamu alaikum to you, Fathima Abdul Rehman. What a pleasure to be talking to you again. What's it? 5 years later, you and I met, our paths crossed. I did an interview with you on another platform, and here you are again. What's happened in the 5 years since I spoke to you last?
Okay. Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So, yes, we did meet 5 years ago. That was in 2019, just after my base camp climb, right? And then after that, we went to COVID. And in that, my mom and dad passed away in 2021. But I needed to turn that around because it was a very grievous time for me. And I needed to make it into something that I would remember, but in a good way. So that I became a coach. Then I enrolled for coaching and I became a mind coach. And thereafter, while in the process of writing my book, becoming a coach, I then became an author for the very first time. So I wanted to write this book for 10 years, but I could not get to do it. I think I was scared. I was worried, like, how am I going to write it? First of all, the structure was important. And then also, people are going to judge me on what I'm writing and is it right? So you have all these beliefs that are coming up. But when I became a coach, that sort of settled in. And I had a very amazing coach, that's Irfan Nuran. He was my clarity man to guide me through the book writing. And that's how I wrote my book. And I'm so honored. Today I'm sharing this with you. So,
Okay, so we talk about this amazing book you've written. You've actually put your life into this book for the whole world to read. It's you in this book, open, unapologetic, and absolutely honest. And we're going to get to that in a little while. Let's talk about the mind coaching program that you underwent. Do you think that had you not done that program, you would not have gotten to write the book?
Definitely, I agree that because I know that everything is a stepping stone, right? And you have to trust it. When the opportunities come, you've got to trust it. And I know this was part of my journey. So I went ahead with it and it helped me sort of realize, because it's a transformation journey anyway. When you become a coach, you go through the systems. It's a 10-week program. We go through it, we get breakthroughs, we overcome our N codes and E codes, that's what we call it, the negative coding. And once we overcome that, we can move forward. And that's where my opportunity came. I said, now I'm ready for it. I think I wasn't ready before. After becoming a coach, I became ready for it. And that's how I progressed forward.
Prior to writing the book, and this was a very important part of your journey of evolving into this very dynamic woman sitting here in front of me, alhamdulillah. But prior to that, the fact that you climbed Kilimanjaro, you obviously went to the base camp, climbed to base camp Everest, and a whole host of other amazing things that you've achieved prior to writing the book.
Yes.
Where did all that come from? Because during that time, there was lots of personal stuff happening in your life as well.
Yes. So I went through a real big challenge in my marriage. There was infidelity. I was a victim of infidelity, and that drove me. I was actually forced to find myself because I didn't have an identity before that. I was just somebody's wife, somebody's mom, but I didn't know who I was. Who was Fatima? I needed to find me, right? And that's how I started learning, and I joined Robin Banks, and I went for all the courses, and I did Tony Robbins and all of that just in search of who I was. And in that process, then I became someone that was willing to share this pain of mine, make it not a pain, but a pain not going in vain, to be someone else's guiding light, so they don't have to suffer for 10 years like I did. Because I went through depression for 10 years, went through antidepressants, and then I overcame that by when I decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That was my door to opportunity. That's when I stood on that mountain. I realized for the very first time that I was more than I ever thought I could be. Because I think I was very sucked into a mindset of like, I'm nothing, I'm worthless before that. But when I did that climb, I realized that the climb was actually, the emotional climb in my life was harder than the actual physical climb. But when I did that comparison, I actually realized now I can do anything. And that's when I went forward then to think, now I can write my book. But it still took me 10 years to write that book. But obviously, with steps going forward, having to get my purpose clear, vision was there, I knew what I wanted. And in that process, I was not going to leave my marriage. I wanted my family to be intact. There was no way I was going to allow anyone to come and take what I had invested in my life. People may not agree with me, but this was my prerogative. I say it in my book, this is what I did. Doesn't mean it's the same for everyone else. It was mine. My values were different.
It was your journey.
It was my journey. And it was my values. Yes.
What fascinates me about your journey, and when we get to the book, we'll delve deeper into it. You climbed Kilimanjaro. You needed to prove to yourself that you are worthy, yes. Not only to the world, but to yourself. And that's most important because it's all about self-love first. Yes. And why this is so poignant for me is just off air now. I mentioned to you that I noticed you limping, and yet you did 2 climbs. And you said to me, I'm preparing for my 3rd one. But then you also went on to say to me that you were born with a club foot, and that just threw me. Do you think that that served you well, and all the operations you had? Was it about proving, not necessarily to the world, but to you yourself, that I'm as good, if not better, and I can do what you do, possibly even better?
Actually, that's part of my life because I was born with it, and my parents did the op and all of that. It just became a part of me. I never thought of myself as being different. But, and it wasn't ever something that held me back. The only thing that held me back was my mindset that if I can do this. And when I thought about doing it, it wasn't even a doubt in my mind I would do that climb. And one day I shared this with the people that climbed with me. After our climb, everyone was so exhausted and we were praying our salah. And then the one lady asked me, because she noticed it. And I said, let me show you my feet. And I showed them my feet. And they were like, oh, could not believe. They were so inspired that, wow, we can do anything. It's just that you become, it's my journey. It's who I am. It makes me, that's why I'm unapologetic of who I am. It just, and all my experiences in my marriage, my husband still supports me, and we are still together. And, he had an extra marriage, but that disintegrated. So we're still together, we never left each other, we still support each other. We're married now for 29 years, happily, and he is standing by me as he had promised on the day we married.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Despite the fact that you went into a second marriage,
yes.
How did that shake your world? And we've got 2 minutes to our first ad break, so if you could just very quickly tell me how that impacted on you.
Yes, I felt like nothing, all my values just sprawled on the floor. What I thought marriage was different than what happened. I never expected, I was in denial. But when I came to my senses, I realized I've got to do something, make a choice, stay or leave. My choice was to stay. And then what to do next. So I took my journey as it came. And I wanted to empower my children. One day they look back and look at me and say, okay, we are here because you didn't leave the marriage. And my husband depends on me for everything now, in a way that he says, I'm here because of you.
Wow, what a story. How many women would actually kind of rise up from the ashes and make something of themselves? And I did want to feature Fatima in Women's Month, but that was not possible. But alhamdulillah, we don't need a specific day or month to feature women of her caliber. And I think we've all got it. You, myself, and all of the other women watching us this morning. It is ingrained within us, and if we really want to be winners, we can. Let's go for our first ad break, and we'll continue this fascinating discussion with this fascinating woman. A fascinating woman in studio with me, and she, of course, is Fathima Ibrahim. She's written 2 books. The third one is in the pipeline, and I think we're going to be focusing a lot on her first book, which is entitled Be You, Unapologetically. And she says that this book is for women who are ready to find their own identity after being lost in the storms of marriage. So this is your story, isn't it, Fatima? What are you hoping women who read this book, women who are broken, women who are in really bad marriages and not sure whether they should continue with the marriage or not, whether there's another woman in the picture, or whether there are other issues, in-laws, outlaws, and other possibly mental health issues? What is your message to them? And I know that you did point out right at the beginning of the show that each woman's journey is specific to her, and she will then, obviously, it's her own personal journey. Your journey and my journey could never be the same. Yes. So what do you say to them?
So the reason I wrote the book is to help other women realize that if you're in a space like this where you have to decide yes or no, make a decision calculated properly. You know, what is your pros, what is your cons, and then see which is working better for you. For me, it was to stay in the marriage. For others, it may not be. It depends. And they, you know, if it's an abusive marriage where there's physical abuse especially, then it's very difficult to continue. So I wouldn't advise someone to stay in a marriage like that. But it's not my decision. It's ultimately make a choice and stick to that choice. When you make the choice, you can handle it yourself. If someone else makes a decision for you, it's very difficult to stick to that decision. And it's just a hope for someone that if you are here, you can make it.
So clearly yours was not physical abuse at all.
No.
And you've also written a poem about yourself in the book. And when you were busy writing the book and shared the information with your husband, obviously you couldn't do this secretly. He's your partner. Yes. And you've been through a lot with him, lots of challenging times. How did he respond to this book?
So he actually wrote an article at the back. There's something from him as well, which he wrote himself, which I published in the book. I told him I'm going to put it. I put a little article, a little bit of a recommendation from all of my kids. My own, I've got 2 girls, and then 2 from the extended marriage, and then my nieces and my nephews, and my husband himself is in there. So there's an article where he says, I was a changed man after I gone through this, after he went through the challenge with me. He realized where he went wrong, and how I managed to bring this family together. It's amazing, and he knows that anyone that reads this book will find hope from this. So that's his own words.
Okay, in chapter 3, you talk about empowering ways to overcome challenges. Yes. When you'd heard about his second marriage, what were the emotions that you went through, and how long did it take you to decide that I'm going to remain on in this marriage? It's about my future, the future of my children. And you loved your husband, you still love him. And because of that, you decided to remain in the marriage.
So I was very shocked. I was didn't know what to do. So the first thing I remember, we're in a double-story house. I ran upstairs, opened the Quran first to see what is the thing regarding divorces and second marriages. And it says in the Quran that you can't ask your husband to divorce another wife if he gets married for the second time. That was all I needed. I accepted it. And the minute I accepted it, it was difficult. my path became a little easier, but there were days where I was very, very sad, and that's why I went through depression and I went through antidepressants. But then I think that pushed me forward to become a better person, to grow, and to become a more loving person. And so I loved unconditionally. It didn't matter whatever happened.
How did your husband respond to you? Talk to me about what that interaction looked like. Did you ask him to, did you arrange a meeting with him? Or was it just kind of spontaneous that you said to him, I know you're in a subsequent marriage, but I love you, I care about you, I care about our children now. I want to preserve this home. I want this to be a healthy home for our children to grow up in.
Well, we used to both see a psychologist at that time, and she asked me to make a decision, and he knew what the decision was. So we didn't really have a meeting about this, but we had to tell our children that this is what's happened. Daddy has a second marriage now. This is what it is. It doesn't mean there's anything less. Like we're just becoming a bigger family. We're not breaking up or anything. And my kids were very young, 10 and 5. I don't know what they understood with this. It was very traumatic for them. But I had to stand with him on this. It wasn't like his decision, it was our decision. And I think from there, because I knew we were still one unit, irrespective of what else was happening. And that sort of gave me more courage. But then I got freedom within that. Because when I have our psychologist arranged in such a way that certain days would be with me, certain days with the other lady. And then on the days when he had to leave, I had freedom. I could do anything I wanted. That was amazing. I could go where I wanted. I mean, I was not short of money or anything. He gave me everything. The emotional part, I think I masked that by spending time with my kids. We'd go out for the whole day. We'd come, sleep in the same bed. It was traumatic knowing that this night is not going to be here. The first night was very difficult, but after that, you sort of get used to it. We look forward to it. And that's why when he used to leave the home to go to her, I would shout out where it would echo in my house, freedom. That gave me strength to carry on. And that's and that's why I wanted to go to Kilimanjaro. And when I stood on that summit, I said, freedom. That was like my second freedom, basically. So yeah, it's just mindset.
Alhamdulillah. The first time when you'd heard the first time that he was in a second marriage, and alhamdulillah, you did the right thing. You ran up to the Quran, you opened up the Quran. In Surah Al-Nisa, obviously all of those, it is documented there about second and subsequent wives and how the husband has to be absolutely equal in every possible way to all the wives, because that will then, he'll be judged for being unjust to the wives on the day of Qiyamah, obviously. So you did the right thing. But what was your first interaction like with him? Because we're human, we have egos. Did you kind of say to him, I'm just thinking if I was placed in a situation like this, I probably would have asked my husband, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? What was that conversation like?
No, I was very, I wouldn't express myself, I'd keep all the pain inside of me. I mean, I would cry and all of that. But on the first time when I heard that it had happened, I just said, why didn't you discuss it properly with me? Why didn't you ask me? He said, no, didn't need to ask you for permission. It's my right.
That's true too, Islamically.
It's my right. So I could not argue with that. I needed to get more information myself. I had to deal with it. It was like my choice, stay or go. I didn't want to leave, so then I had to handle it. And
did he give you that option that it's up to you whether you want to stay in the marriage with me, or I'll give you your freedom if you so wish?
No, it wasn't even I didn't want to leave, so it was my choice to stay.
He didn't give you that option.
No, he always gave me that option, but I think it wasn't a serious matter. It was like, sometimes when you're angry, you say things. It wasn't a matter of a serious discussion, sitting down and talking about it. It was just something that was, he said, I'm not leaving you. This is just an extra marriage. I'm not leaving you. I'm never going to leave you. It was for me to decide if I wanted to stay or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And now that you've gone through that journey, is it 10 years since he...
This is great, yeah. Actually, from the time I went to Kilimanjaro, from that time, when I came back, the other marriage was disintegrating already. So it was It's 12 years, I think. Yeah, 12 years.
12 years since this epic event in your life.
Yes.
Your kids are now adults.
Yes.
Do you ever sit and have discussions with them? Do they ever ask questions? Do they try and understand why? And I go on once again to say it, as Muslims, Muslim men are allowed subsequent marriages, the total being 4, as long as they treat their wives equally with love, respect and dignity, and also maintain them equally. Having said that, we human, I say it once again, we have egos. How did your children, when they grew older and got a better understanding of the situation, deal with it, deal with you and their father? Did they feel less loved?
I think, yes, they felt a bit less loved because they're having to share their father with somebody else. But the beauty part is there was a child from, 2 kids from the other marriage, and then they used to come on weekends, which then was an adjustment for us. But today, Michelle has grown up and she's become part of us, and she looks forward to us, and we look forward to having her. So the tides change, my family became like, and my youngest daughter, because they were the same age, the 2 of them were the same age, and then they always had this competition, but as they grew, they became each other's best friends, good friends for each other. So I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know what anything was going to happen. But alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful that, today I even wrote Michelle that she's my daughter. I take her as my daughter, and that's her space. She's found that.
And time for our next break. Yeah. Isn't she a superwoman? I can't, as she's speaking and responding to the questions that I'm posing to her, and I know some of those questions are tough for her to deal with it yet again, because it starts that journey in her mind. I kind of look at my guest Fatima in absolute wonderment and just know within myself I could never deal with something like this. So Allah is great, alhamdulillah. Let's go for that ad break and we'll continue this discussion right here on Perspective. Be You, Unapologetically. That's the title of Fathima Rehman's book. And of course, this is her life, her heart, her feelings, the very essence of who she is. She's written this book about her life, her marriage, and just how it has challenged her and spurred her on to become a powerful, whole human being all over again. Do you think that if this hadn't happened in your life, that you would be where you are right now?
I don't think I would be here right now. And I said that to my husband. It's because of you, because of our experiences that we've got together that made me stronger. And even though it was challenging, I've looked for the positives in it to become who I am, so that I can help other women do the same for themselves. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a new you. That's what I always say.
And alhamdulillah, he must be quite a remarkable man for you to still stick with him and to decide that despite another woman being in the picture, I'm still going to remain on in this marriage. You must love him deeply.
I do. And I always used to pray that, oh Allah, let nothing and no one ever come between us, even though things were difficult at that time. Alhamdulillah, we've come back together, and better understanding, we have deep conversations. And I think that takes time. It's like my psychologist used to say, it's like sweet wine. We don't drink wine, but you can imagine with time, it ages and becomes better. It can only get better.
So your title, Be You, Unapologetically, is this a direct message to your husband?
It's about me being true to myself. Because I was a person that was not, I'm loving, I'm caring, and I'm not someone who would speak up for myself, or I would hide behind things that I want to do, and I would try to change myself to suit him. I wouldn't stand for what I wanted or what not.
So you were a people pleaser.
I was a people pleaser. Now I stand for who I am. My integrity is very important. If I like something, but I'm not going to be rude. I'll say it in a nice way. That's what I mean by be you unapologetically. Nobody should change you. Be who you are, and then you'll be much happier within yourself.
How have you grown through this journey? I know you have told me that taking up, that mind coach program shifted your mind, shifted your thinking, and has enabled you to be this super strong superwoman, alhamdulillah. Would you have gone on this training had nothing gone wrong in your marriage?
I don't think so, because I was always searching to be, I was trying to be someone that I was, the work that I'd done before was not satisfying. But when I met someone who was a coach, I thought, this is what I want to do. This is my career for life. And I think because of the experiences I had, I know I had so much to share with the world to help others realize their potential. Because when I was at a point of lowest point in my life, I didn't know my potential until I went through the experiences and the challenges and the growth that came with it. So challenges are there to grow us, and that's what coaching teaches us. Take your challenge, turn it into growth, find the positive, and move forward. Don't stay stuck in the past.
Congratulations, Fatima. I understand that you've won an international award for this book, Be You Unapologetically. Talk to us about that, what it means for you and what it's going to mean for other women.
So this award, I got it like a few weeks ago. And to tell you that I first created it in my mind, I'm not joking about it. I always imagined I'd be standing and I'd be thanking everyone and saying, because of my husband, I managed to get this award. And I imagined me receiving it. So it was a dream come true for me. This award just puts me in a space that, you know what, my book is worth reading. And there's lots of lessons to be taken from there. And I think every woman should definitely read it. Even men should read it, because they look at a perspective of what the wife goes through when there's a second marriage, and the challenges that a man has got as well. A lot of physical challenges comes to the husband because of the stress that you go through. So I always advise, in my book as well, I write there, men, if you're thinking about the second marriage or third marriage, reconsider, because the repercussions that's going to come onto you is a lot more than you can expect. So it's for men and women to read, and this award has just given me that, like, you know, there's more of a value that my book should be read, because other people see value in it, then I'm sure there's much more value in it.
People often say, people often say that when a man goes into subsequent marriages, and this is really a judgment statement that I'm making, is there must be something wrong in the marriage. That is why he's gone on and married another woman. How did you defend your position then? Because I'm sure you heard it all the time, whether directly to you or behind your back.
You know, when I first heard about this, the second marriage, and I couldn't step out of my house. I was riddled with guilt and shame. I don't know why. I felt I had done something wrong for this to happen. And after I realized that it wasn't actually me, I did the best I could as a wife. So it wasn't my fault. It was my husband's decision to do this. And I just accepted that the fact, you know, I don't have control on everything. I could do what I could within my power, and things do happen. Perhaps it was part of our journey, part of the growth journey, but I didn't have control on what happened. I tried to be the best person, best human being I could be. And we go through that, and then we just become better people. But I did go walk around with that. I didn't want to leave the house to face people who's going to ask me anything about it. I was too shy, too scared. And then afterwards, I had plucked up the courage. I raised my head up because I was looking on the floor. You know, I was too scared. That shame. I don't know why shame, because I couldn't save my marriage, or I couldn't keep my marriage intact, that my husband had to find someone else. But I realized it wasn't even about me. It was about him, his decisions. His priorities changed. My priorities were still the same. So, and then I raised my head and I said, this is who I am, unapologetic. Anybody can judge me or don't judge me. This is me. And then I became more confident about speaking about it openly.
Did you expect an apology and perhaps an explanation for why this has happened from him directly? I know you indicated that you both went for counseling, and I think that was really very valuable because it allowed you to explore where you're at and to answer questions around this challenge in your life and him as well.
Yes.
Did that ever happen?
Yes. So we did have conversations about this, and one day, after some time, when the other marriage had disintegrated, he came to me and he apologized to me, and he said, with tears and genuine, I could feel it was genuine. I'm really sorry for what I did to you, because I understand what it feels like. The pain you've gone through, I understand it now. And for me, that was what I never thought I'd even get it, that apology. But for me, that was like a closure for me to say, yes, now he understands, and it's okay. When someone feels your pain, really feels it, is when they walk a mile in your shoes. And that's the only way they'll understand that what the pain is, what I had to go through because of the process of what happened on his side. And that was for me something I could go on. And when my mom and dad passed away, he was stood by me, and that was a moment I was so alone in, because it was COVID, no family members. And he stood there and he brought food for me because I was taking care of my dad. And I looked at him with such high esteem that in a moment when I'm all alone in my life, he's right next to me. And that for me gives me a lot of that I know my husband still loves me and he cares for me. And we've come a long way. And even at the moment when I was so weak, he was still there for me. So he's a remarkable man. I'll say that again and again, because he is. And there's nothing to be, whatever's happened is in the past, and we look forward.
When a situation like this does happen, when a man is found to be having an illicit affair or marrying a subsequent wife, you've said it as well, and us as women would judge ourselves and say, I didn't fulfill all of his needs, that is why he had to go out and find what was lacking in me in another woman.
Yes.
Has he explained that to you? And do you ever wonder, is there that slight fear in your mind that he might do it again? He might decide to enter into another marriage. How will I cope with it if it does? I hope and pray it doesn't happen. But do you have those conversations in your mind?
I used to have those conversations quite often. Then I realized I am a worthy person now. Whether he does it or not, I don't think he'll do it. I mean, he's gone through enough to realize the lessons that he got from that. He won't do it again. But I'm a different person from then to now. I've grown. So I'll be able to handle it, I'm sure. And this time, if it happens, I won't stick around. I'll just move on with my life. And he knows that.
Why would that be different? You allowed him to be a part of your life when he married another woman, and yet you've had these conversations in your mind that should it happen again, I'm not sticking around. Why?
Because my kids have grown up now. I'm more independent. I'm a stronger person now, and I know what I want. I know what I'm worth. I didn't know my value then, but I know my value now. So I think times have changed, and I'll be looking for something else then. It doesn't really matter. But I don't think it's going to happen. I always had this vision that we'll grow old together.
Mashallah.
And I still have that vision. So, inshallah, it will
Have
be
you guys
that way.
had this conversation?
Yes.
And what does he say?
He said, I promised you. And he wrote something when we were courting each other. He wrote a letter. I have it somewhere, that we will be together for the rest of our lives, And when you're courting, everything looks so rosy and looks perfect. But that was a promise he made, and he said, I made the promise and I will be with you. And I have no doubt on that.
Other women going through a similar journey and feel that they can't cope with the fact that the husband is in another relationship. He may have begged and pleaded and asked for the marriage not to break up, the first marriage.
Yes.
But they just feel they don't have the capacity to deal with it. They're too hurt. They feel too betrayed.
Yes.
And you have said it, that each person's journey is their own.
Yes.
But what is the best piece of advice you'd give to a person like that?
The first thing is we need to ask ourselves, have I done everything to save this marriage? Because we know divorce is your last option. There's a lot of impact on the children, which we don't realize. Sometimes adults become so selfish that they're only concerned about their own self, but our kids are going to grow up with this trauma, and they're going to face it in their own lives, and they're going to have marriages, and they probably will going to have the same, because history does repeat itself. So think about, if I've done everything to save this marriage or to grow. Actually, we need to grow ourselves first. When we grow ourselves, do whatever we need to do, get the help we need, And then if it didn't work, then at least you know, live with no, my motto is live with no regrets. Don't have that regret that you could have done something and you didn't. You didn't do everything possible to save your marriage. And if you come to the point where you couldn't save it, then it's okay. Then you can go on with your life knowing that you did all possible things, it didn't work out, now it's time to try something else. But I wouldn't say just give up on the first attempt, you know, just do what you have to do. That's if you really value the marriage and if things are still good enough to keep it.
Let's look at your support structure during this time.
Yes.
How important was it, perhaps your parents and siblings, etc.? Did you feel that that played a huge role in you being strong and realizing that you need to stay together in this marriage for yourself firstly, and then for the people around you?
Yes, luckily my mom and dad were around, but I never discussed with them because they gave me independence from a young age. And I was told on the day I got married that whatever problems you solve your problems. Don't bring it home. And I remembered that, but I knew that my parents were there for me if I needed. So I wasn't alone if I had to leave the marriage. But still, I tried to work it out myself. Didn't want to burden my parents with all of the stress that I was going through. And I've just got one brother, and he was taking care. He was with my parents, so they had their own life, and I had my life. But knowing that I had a father and a mother that was there for me in case something went wrong, that was a great support for me. And my family, I mean, my mother's family, were very close to each other. But it's not that I would go and discuss my personal problems with them. It was just knowing that I had something in the background. You know, it's very important to have that.
And time for our final ad break before we wrap up. An amazing woman. She's an international speaker. She's won an award for this book, Be You Unapologetically. Please go out and buy the book. It's not a big, heavy read. It's really simple, easy to understand. And I think all of us would be able to identify with the stuff that comes up in the book. So go out and get it. Even if you're not in a troubled marriage, I think it would just give you insight into situations as and when they arise and how to deal with them. Please do join us for the final segment after the ad break. Welcome back. Fathima Abdul Rehman is my guest. She's an author. She is also a certified mind coach. But wait for this, over and above all of that, she is also the co-founder of an online morning platform, Fire to Wire South Africa, and a radio presenter on One World Media. So we're going to ask her to talk to us about that. And then the all-important issue is, of course, forgiveness. So much to cover in the next few minutes, including her second book, which is in the pipeline. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Gosh, so much to cover. Talk to us about all of the other initiatives that you're involved in.
Okay. So after I became a coach, I became part of the MRM platform, which just means Mental Resilience Mastermind, right? So from there, it's basically a group of like-minded people who get together and discuss certain ideas which help each other grow. And that's where Fire to Wire started. It's a morning platform like we have, like early morning, you get to do a bit of meditation and we discuss a topic, and that takes 1 hour for everything. And that's the Fire to Wire. And if we join every single morning, we start growing, because in the morning our minds are fresh. You're able to set your day and you're able to have a fantastic day, and you know what your priorities are. So that's what it's for. And also being part of the, as a radio presenter with One World Media, I was, we did a radio segment first with Islam Alive Radio, but then we started our own radio station. And we still haven't yet, we started, but we haven't yet got it off yet. So that will be coming soon. And so I'm very, very excited. I love just being out there in public and just sharing and helping. But I do a live, Instagram live every Thursday with it's called Conversation with Fathima and Enya, Soulful Conversations with Fathima and Enya. And we share amazing, interesting conversations about life, about mental resilience, about going the extra mile, different things where people really log in to understand and to grow. and you get value from that. So that's what I do on my time when I'm not writing or coaching.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's talk about your second book, Grail 2.0. What's it all about? When's it being launched? And who should be reading it?
Okay, so Grail 2.0 is already launched. That one is an anthology of 40 authors. So it's 40 coaches from across 4 continents, and it's everyone's purpose, how we came to our purpose. And that purpose is so important, it drives you forward. Without a purpose, you don't have a reason to get up in the morning. You don't know what you want, and you can't make an impact on anyone else's life, let alone your own life, right? So now the third book is about the same principle of having a purpose, and it's also, I think at the moment it's 30 authors, so it's called Purpose, The Purpose Matrix, A Journey to a Fulfilled Life. And that's the same concept where people are writing their purpose, how they've grown from the MRM platform, and how we can take it forward. It's all about paying it forward. And people that benefit from this are people that are going through depression, people that are going through old age loneliness, their kids have left home, how to find their purpose and how to move forward, not just sit back and wait till death comes.
Let's talk about the concept of purpose very quickly, because I also want to cover forgiveness.
Yes.
Different people would understand purpose differently, very especially if you've been in a long relationship and your partner leaves you or passes away or something, along those lines. How do you find your purpose? What are the type of questions you ask yourself to get to that point to realize what your purpose is?
Okay, so first of all, you need to know what is the meaning of purpose. What would life be without having a purpose? You look at people without a purpose, they don't have any reason to get up in the morning, as I said. And what would life look with a purpose? And then what is important to me? What are my values? What is my beliefs about life? And then when you've gone through a challenge, it brings that purpose, because my purpose is to help women find their identity, raise their self-esteem, and stand in their power to raise their families confidently and impact future generations. So it's not one day you get up and you know your purpose. There's a process to it, and sometimes you need to refine it. It takes a long time, but once you got it, and you move forward.
Wow. Absolutely powerful. Let's wrap up on something that's really very, very important, and the concept of forgiveness. We often, when we are in broken relationships, we often expect the opposite party to come and ask us for forgiveness because we feel we'll be released. We'll feel better about ourselves. We'll tell ourselves, yes, he or she had to come and ask for forgiveness. It absolves me from any wrongdoing. And the forgiveness almost tells me that I was right all along, he or she was wrong, and I feel good about myself. But it's not that, is it? Forgiveness is not all of that, is it?
No, forgiveness is giving yourself permission to let go of whatever is holding you, not absolving the person that has perpetrated whatever it was. It's not absolving them from what they're supposed to get, because what you give, you will get back. But it's separating you from that and giving you the freedom to live your life, even though that's had happened. So you sort of let that person, set them free. And it's that resentment, if you don't forgive, resentment will build and become a sickness or a disease or whatever. And most of the time it's cancer that starts eating into our bodies. And that's why sickness gets worse and worse, because we don't forgive. We're holding on to something that is past, can't change it, but we want to just believe that we were right, and that's ego. So letting go of forgiveness, forgiving somebody, like I did in my case, I forgave my husband or forgave the other lady in my life, just allowed me to find what was important to me.
How important is it to verbalize the forgiveness? So in your situation, did you say to your husband, all of this has happened, but I do want you to know that I love you and I forgive you, and I hope and pray we can live in peace? And whatever else it was that you told the other woman, is that necessary, or is it self-talk that also is able to release you?
That's part of it. We had that conversation. But prior to that, I was in a very bad space, and I had a coach that came in to help me and asked me, do you forgive this person? And I had to think about it, and I denied it. I said, no, I'm not going to. And the second time he did the same. And the third time, it was with a deluge of tears that flowed out of me, like my heart was set free. I said, yes, I forgive. And
You didn't feel pressurized into forgiving?
no, he just said, "Can you forgive?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Can you just try and forgive?" I said, "No, I won't." Then he said, "Will you forgive?" And then I said, "You know, you have to think about these things. And then if you're willing to, are you willing to forgive? Willing is the important thing." I said, "Yes." And that's when I set myself free. And it's a process also. It's like a peel of an onion. You take one layer off and another layer. So with time, you can still hear in my voice, the undertone. But with time, it just becomes a bit easier. And today I can talk to this lady and have no problem speaking to her.
And alhamdulillah, in Islam, the beauty of forgiveness is so deep and so meaningful.
Yes.
And we as Muslims, we know what our Nabi has told us about forgiveness.
Yes.
So, alhamdulillah, I think we are more blessed as Muslims because we are guided by this beautiful religion of ours that has the answer to all of our problems. But it is time to wrap up. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Your final words very quickly, if you don't mind.
Thank you so much, Yuri, for this amazing opportunity. It was truly an honor to be here and a privilege. I just want to let the women out there know and the men out there know that if you're going through a challenge, reach out. Can be anything. Reach out to a coach. Can be anyone you prefer. A coach is there to help you move forward. You don't have to be stuck anymore in a situation. And when you move forward, more opportunities open up. You just become a better person. You can help others along the same path. That's my final.
You've touched me in a very positive way. Thank you indeed. Continue touching people the way you've touched me. May your journey be bright and beautiful and full of love. And of course, that's where we leave it. Time for us to wrap up. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. And undoubtedly, this woman has touched you in a big way, as she's touched me. She is the author, international award-winning author, Fathima Abdul Rehman, sharing her story with us. And don't forget to go out and buy the book, Be You, Unapologetically. It's going to change the way you think. Till the next time, from me, a big shout out to our production team. Thank you for all your hard work. And from me, I do hope to see you again. As always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.